in that liturgy, because it's just so pure and beautiful and reverent, it just provoked purity out of me. I couldn't help but just really desired. Not only did I stop the sin, but I really wanted the desires to be gone. I grew up in California. I was raised by a mom that was Catholic. My dad was Catholic. However, I did not know him because in my younger years as a child, when I was around 2 or 3, he was in prison for murder. My mom left the Catholic Church and she started taking us to this Pentecostal church of Assemblies of God. I grew up around emotional abuse, sexual abuse, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, whether it was friends or in the home. So I didn't feel like I was accepted at home. I am full Mexican. I never felt like I was fully accepted through the Mexican community I grew up around often because I didn't know Spanish. So there was a lot of insecurities that were rooted in me as a child for various different reasons. I felt like, because we grew up in a very poor home, I didn't fit in at church because the church we went to was pretty full of Caucasian. It was more of an elite status kind of church, and so I just didn't feel accepted there as well. So I found myself hanging out with people who I felt did accept me. It provoked a lot of fighting in the streets and more of a self-destruction behavior path of a lifestyle. And then by the time I was 17 years old, through my high school years, I was pretty much addicted to partying. So I would sell myself sexually, more like prostitution, I guess you can say, for drugs. So then through my high school years, living that path and feeling like I was just kind of a loser, like I just couldn't make right decisions. I didn't really know why. And school was never a priority in my home. It was always a choice. So I met this guy when I was 17 years old. He had a job, he had money, he had a nice car, he had education, he graduated top of his class, he was in the Army, he was tall, dark, and handsome. He worked out. Why would he be interested in me? And so it really just drew me into this relationship because I didn't know that kind of, better life, what I thought, but that relationship ended up being a really abusive relationship. He introduced me to a lot of pornography and would force me to do porn movies. It was emotionally abusive. It was physically abusive. But in a way, it was my norm from what I grew up around. And so I cried one day and said, I'm tired of living with the situation because of the situation, him having custody of me for those 10 years. At that time, I couldn't see my son unless I gave him sex or money. I was crying on the road and said, Lord, if you exist, Lord, if you're real, show me. And that day, my mom and I talked. She came into a lawsuit, wired me some money to hire an attorney. And she's under the conditions that as long as I go back to church, that's when my conversion started happening with God. So I found Assemblies of God Church, became active, was there for about 12 years. The more I became active, and the more I started growing in intimacy with the Lord and reading the Bible and really having this close relationship with Jesus Christ, I started looking at my church going, things just don't look the same as the Bible. And I started having all these questions, and God started speaking to my heart about leaving my church to become Catholic. I thought it was crazy. Eventually, I came into the church in 2010. I still had a lot of issues in my life, baggage and stuff. I had sexual addiction. I would get frustrated easy. I had anger issues. And so I would sit there and go to reconciliation. And though I felt the grace in that, I just felt like I still couldn't come unbound from that. I would still struggle. So one day I was crying out going, okay, Lord, I went through all this. I've served you. I've done different ministries. I've come to the Catholic Church. I go to Mass. I go to daily Mass. I go to reconciliation on a regular basis. I still struggling in all these sins. And I would be in and out of mortal sin. Sexual addiction was one of the biggest ones. And so I felt like the Lord was showing me to work on my brain chemicals, on the neurotransmitters. And so I started eating healthy. I still struggled a little bit with the thoughts and the frustrations in my life. Okay, so Lord, how do I overcome this? And he started showing me the Latin Mass. He started introducing me to the Latin Mass, to the extraordinary form. That caused me to have those desires rise up, even though I was now controlling them through working out and being healthy and reconciliation. There were still those lingering desires, and how do I control that? And through this liturgy, this beautiful Mass, it would provoke that out of me, and the graces from this liturgy would sustain me through the week and through all these thoughts. Whenever they would come, it would just repel right off of me. I just can't help but just walk from this day forward in just absolute pure joy and love and hope and happiness. My life is still not exactly what you would call happy, but I'm really happy. I'm really, really happy.
As someone who's used media a lot in evangelization, so I believe in the importance of Catholic radio, Catholic TV, Catholics using the new media. Can I encourage everyone to watch Shalom TV? I think it's a great vehicle of evangelization. And God bless all of you.